We're starting off with the job that most of our heroes begin our journey as, the Freelancer. It's more exciting than it sounds, trust me. The Freelancer is a free-form job capable of filling into any role that needs to be occupied in a team thanks to their well-rounded moveset. Not only that, the Freelancer also is passively rewarded with even better abilities and higher stats as the game progresses, making it a viable option for most, if not all, of the playthrough. But before we dive headfirst into what makes this job tick, I do want to briefly go over how jobs work in Bravely Default 2. Jobs allow for players to outfit each party member with unique roles and designs, each with their own specialized roles, stats, and abilities. Learning how each job works individually and with each other is key to succeeding in combat in Bravely Default 2. So we don't spend too much time going over every little thing there is to know about how jobs function. I am just going to go ahead and shotgun some key points that will help you get a better understanding of how they work. There are two roles that a job can fill when applying them to a character, main and sub-jobs. Main jobs directly affect your character's base stats, weapon affinities, and design. Main jobs will obtain JP after combat, and only the main job's special moves can be used. Sub-jobs don't have any direct influence over your character's base stats, but their abilities and specialties can be taken advantage of in combat alongside the main job. It's important to note that sub-jobs will not gain JP in combat, so they will need to be leveled up separately from your current main job if you want to unlock more abilities. Each job has weapon affinities tied to them. These will affect the potency of each weapon type when used on that job, ranging from S rank, the highest, to E rank, the lowest. I will showcase the effects of each letter for you now, but just understand that you're going to want to use higher tiered weapons as often as possible to get the most out of your job. Every single job in the game has 2 specialties and 1 special move that is unique to them. The first specialty and the special move are unlocked as soon as you get the job, with the second specialty being unlocked once the job has reached level 12. Because these specialties are inherently unique to the job they are tied to, they play a major role in whether or not it's worth it for a job to stick around after mastering it. Now, where were we again? Oh, right, we're supposed to be talking about the Freelancer. Well, since we're on the subject, let's go ahead and talk about its specialties first. First up on the list for the Freelancer's specialties is Stand Ground. This allows for the Freelancer to survive a fatal attack with 1 HP with roughly a 50% chance of it activating. Do note that this chance can be raised with various luck increasing abilities and passives, but it will never be a guaranteed chance. It is also important to mention that your Freelancer's HP needs to be higher than 1 before the ability activates for Stand Ground to work, or else the chance of it triggering will be 0. This is a pretty solid first specialty to start the game out with, as it can be used as a sort of cushion early on for new players still getting adjusted to the Brave and default system, since you might be able to salvage a bad gamble or an unfortunate ambush. While this rings true in the later parts of the game as well, by that point, you have many more options to ensure your survival, so Stand Ground becomes more of a little bonus than a safeguard. Now at job level 12, Freelancer gets access to its second specialty, Late Bloomer. With each job mastered on a character, meaning a job has reached level 12, the Freelancer job will obtain a few base stat increases. On screen now is the amount that each stat will be raised by with 1 job mastered. This allows the Freelancer to become stronger passively as the game progresses if you're diligent about leveling other jobs, which you should be doing so in the first place. Now, there are 24 jobs in this game, so you can probably do the math on how busted the Freelancer gets. Holy crap! Yeah, with every job mastered, the Freelancer's base stats become some of the best you can get in the game. This specialty alone lets this job stay viable throughout the entire journey despite its innate shortcomings like low weight and mediocre weapon affinities. Next is the Freelancer's special move, All Out Assault. Every job in Bravely Default 2 has a unique special move that they can activate once specific conditions are met, with All Out Assault's conditions being to use the attack command 12 times. Special moves must be used by themselves, meaning you can't Brave to try and pair these actions with other moves in the same turn. Each special move also comes with some sort of additional effect that can benefit your team in some way. In this case, All Out Assault is a powerful single-target physical attack on an opponent with the bonus of buffing your entire team's physical and magical attack by 20%. All-Out Assault's damage output is quite nice, but that group buff is definitely the star of the show here. And with this special move being super easy to build, this becomes a reliable tool in almost any fight. Deal some good damage, buff the team, and then send your allies flying towards the enemy. With all that out of the way, let's finally get into the Freelancer's lineup of combat abilities, starting with their starting skill, Examine. This ability lets the user reveal an enemy's HP, weaknesses, and family type permanently, letting you keep tabs on your opponent and plan your strategies accordingly. I don't think I need to explain in detail why this information is so important to have. Now, I will say that there are some things that Examine will not notify you about that can be a bit frustrating, mainly being any potential counters and ailment resistances. Regardless of this, Examine should be used on as many regular enemies and bosses as possible in order to gain as many advantages over them as you can. Additionally, the Magnifying Glass item has the exact same function as Examine, so you don't even need Freelancer anywhere in your party for you to have access to it, which is quite nice. At job level 2, Freelancer learns Treat. For just 20 MP, you can restore 20% of a target's maximum HP and 10% of their maximum MP. This is a simple, yet effective, sustain ability that lets the Freelancer play support for themselves and their team if needed. While not a full replacement for a dedicated support or healer, Treat does scale pretty well throughout the game as a last resort or a post-revive boost for a teammate low on resources. At job level 4, Freelancer learns Forage. This ability lets the user search for items while in combat. The rarity and usefulness of the items is determined mainly by the current job level of the Freelancer using Forage. I will post a link in the description to a site that has a list of the items you can find with this ability. So why would you want to use Forage? First, it helps lessen the weight of your wallet, for starters, since you can use this to find valuable items wanted for dungeon exploring, like tents, healing consumables, throwing items, and even some easy JP and experience orbs. And second, most of the items obtained while foraging can be used in the Salve Maker's concoctions, letting you save money on buying items and keep a renewable stack of consumables coming for a job that relies on said items. Next, we have Lucky Charm and Wish Upon a Star, obtained at job level 6 and 13, respectively. Lucky Charm will increase a target's luck by 15% for 5 turns, while Wish Upon a Star will increase the entire party's luck by 10% during the day and 30% at night. Pair these with jobs and abilities that rely or benefit from luck, like pretty much any gambler action, Red Mage's Revenge passive, or even the Freelancer's very own Stand Ground specialty. Next up, at job level 8 is Purge. This ability is very self-explanatory, as it removes various effects that are difficult to remove without items, and in even some cases like Doom, it can't be removed in any other way but with Purge. Useful ability to have on hand if you're going into a fight where you know any of these pesky ailments will be in play. While on the subject of removing stuff, at job level 10, the Freelancer will learn Square One. The description of this ability is sort of misleading, as it doesn't actually specify what status effects it removes. Simply put, Square One removes any buffs and debuffs from the target, along with things like the Pignomancer's Daub or Oracle's Elemental Impairment. Square One does not remove traditional ailments like poison or blind, so don't waste a turn thinking that'll work. This ability is a bit more niche than Purge or the White Mage's Basana, but against foes that tend to use buffs or debuffs, you can send them back to square one with this single action. At job level 11, the Freelancer learns Body Slam. This is effectively identical to a conventional attack, but with the addition of costing 1 BP to use and calculating the user's weight into the attack itself. Body Slam will also delay the target's next action by a little bit. This ability's damage formula is pretty insane, as 1 weight point roughly adds up to about 25 extra damage added onto a conventional attack. With the fact that jobs are very easy to master even as early as the prologue, you can be dealing 4-digit damage with little to no preparation whatsoever. Body Slam also lets jobs that boast higher weight caps thrive with how high the damage multiplier can scale with the right setup. This attack alone can easily solo most of the early to mid game, while falling off a little bit later on. And lastly, at job level 15, the Freelancer will learn Mimic. This ability lets the Freelancer repeat the most recent action taken by themselves or an ally while ignoring all HP, MP, BP, PEG, or item costs. If that sounds super broken, that's because it is. Resource management is a key component of combat in Bravely Default 2, but Mimic allows you to just straight up ignore that aspect of the game once an action has been performed a single time. Now, it is important to mention that Mimic is still considered an ability on its own, so it can still trigger ability-based counters from enemies. So you should take at least some precautions before just spamming this like a madman. Now we move on to talking about the Freelancer's passive abilities. These are abilities that can be equipped onto a character that provide various effects, ranging from buffing your damage based on how often you've braved, allowing magic attacks to land critical hits, or even in case of the Freelancer's level 3 ability, Divining Rod, let you see how many chests there are in a current location. This passive is very helpful for when you are first exploring an area, since valuable items are quite a common find in dungeons. But this ability also lets you see the chests found on the overworld, but do note that some of the world map zones do share this chest counter. So if you were scratching your head about a few missing chests in the Alcyonia region, it's probably because it isn't there and is in another region. Next, at job level 4, the Freelancer obtains Dungeon Master. This passive lets the user avoid terrain-based damage while navigating the overworld and dungeons. This would seem super useful if it wasn't for the fact that there are only 2 dungeons in the entire game that make use of this passive. And they're both optional! It can come in handy, I guess, in those 2 specific cases, or you could just heal off the damage or ailments you might take from those hazards. At job level 7, the Freelancer learns Self-Healing. This is another simple passive ability, as it automatically removes the poison, blind, and silence ailments for the user after combat concludes. Nice for dungeon crawling, and you want to save your healer's MP for more pressing matters. Not much else to say, though. Onto something way better, at job level 9 and 12, the Freelancer learns JP Up and JP Up and Up. These 2 passives sort of work in tandem with one another, with JP Up raising JP gain by 20% for the user, and JP Up and Up raising it by 50%. Combining the 2 together will net the user a 70% boost to their JP gain in combat. This alone is a good reason to level the Freelancer as early as possible, since the gain you'll see from this is so large that you often won't need to grind at all for the rest of the game. The biggest downside of running these 2 passives at the same time is that they take up 3 of your 5 ability slots, making it difficult to run these into a tough boss without it nerfing your team. Determine if the risk is worth it if you find yourself struggling on an encounter and need the extra space for more passives. And finally, at job level 14, the Freelancer learns Limit Breaker. This passive ability will double the cap of stat buffs for the user, meaning that they have the potential to gain even stronger boosts from buffs than normal. Buffs in Bravely Default 2 are a surefire way of giving yourself an advantage over your opponent, so being able to boost your stats even further can only be seen as a good thing. It is important to note, however, that there are so many different ways to go about boosting each stat in this game that Limit Breaker has to compete with. Think about your end goal for strategy and build, and decide whether or not the stat cap being raised is something you need or if it would just be unnecessary. Okay, so we've gone over what the Freelancer is, how its specialties work, and all of its moves. But how do you actually use it in combat? Well, I'm not here to dictate how you play video games, so instead I want to provide suggestions for how you can utilize a Freelancer rather than telling you that there is a must-play meta build. The freedom to create is what makes these games fun and exciting after all. First up, it must be stated that the Freelancer in its earliest stages isn't all that exciting. It gets access to some decent moves like Treat, Lucky Charm, and Body Slam, but it doesn't really make good use of any of those themselves. If you intend to run the Freelancer in the early game, try making it an item hoarder, since you can use Forge to look for throwing items that you can then chuck at your enemies, or heal your team. Slapping a Bard sub-job on it early isn't a bad idea either if you just want to give them something reliable to do when you can't deal damage. It really isn't until you've mastered many more jobs or reached the end game that this job becomes a menace. As I said at the start of this video, the Freelancer can mold itself into any role you want it to fill, so you really can't go wrong with any build idea you might have. I do, however, want to give a special shout out to a few jobs that I think synergize well with the Freelancer. First up is Thief, and if you're a Bravely Default 2 veteran, you know exactly where I'm going with this. Not only is Godspeed Strike an unbelievably powerful move that almost any job can take advantage of, plus, mimic reducing its cost, but the Freelancer also has luck-increasing abilities that allow for you to increase your odds of stealing items. You could also lean even further into the idea I had with items earlier if you pair the Freelancer with Salvemaker. Forage is that job's best friend, and with the Salvemaker's concoctions paired with the Freelancer's insane base stats, you can have an unkillable chemist on your team that can raise hell on your foes while keeping your team hale and hearty. Gambler is definitely more of a meme build centered around rigging the job's various luck-based actions with the Freelancer's abilities. If you're looking for something fresh to test out on a new run, or just want to dance with Lady Luck, this might be a fun combination to check out. But seriously, this job works well with pretty much everything else. But if you have any other builds that you want to mention specifically, please share them in the comments. These videos are meant to provide information and promote discussion, so please don't be shy. Overall, the Freelancer leaves a pretty strong first impression, wouldn't you say? While it obviously takes a while for its combat prowess to get going, this job provides amazing passive bonuses and some valuable combat abilities right out of the gate that can be used for the entire game. Well, yeah, its weight is never that good, which does limit what gear you can put on them by a tiny bit, and their weapon affinities are lackluster. This job earns its spot on pretty much any team just by merely existing. It's pretty poetic that one of their specialties is named Late Bloomer, since that describes them perfectly. Now, we aren't done just yet, as at the end of each of these overview videos, I want to take a look at the visual side of each job and rank them on how much I like their design on each character. Each of them will be given a rank in the tier list style, with E being the lowest and S being the highest. Now, Freelancer is an interesting case, since each party member has their own unique design for this job. But let's go ahead and start with Seth. Seth's profession is that of a sailor, and his Freelancer garb showcases this very well. His white, baggy shirt with a loose collar covered in a black vest gives him this very rugged look. My man has definitely seen some stuff out there on those waves, that's for sure. It honestly makes him seem very unkempt and brash upon first glance, but it is just proof of his diligence and hard-working mindset. His overall design has definitely taken over what a sailor in my head is for the past, 3 years. A solid A-tier design that lets me know what he's all about in just a single glance. Second up is Gloria, Princess of Musa. Right off the bat, evidence of her status is very apparent with how stylized her dress is with the ornate designs and flowers. Honestly though, there isn't much else to her look that I can really make mention of. It does its job of telling me who she is and how important she must be right off the bat. Another A-tier. This design for Elvis is pretty neat. The yellow flower, plaid jeans, and blue scarf are easily my favorite part of the design and definitely seem like something he would wear just for the fun of it. However, Elvis is in a weird spot, since this design isn't what most people, me included, associate him with, as his Black Mage outfit is not only the one he starts the game with, but also was in most of the promotional material for this game. Hell, even Octopath Traveler considers his Black Mage design more iconic, while everyone else got the Freelancer design. With that said, I just don't think Elvis's Freelancer design holds the same "this is who you are" energy for me. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad look for him, but it just isn't the Elvis look for me. B tier. And last but not least, we have Adele. She is rocking a very different design from the other three, sporting a scimitar on her waist, a white scarf, dark blue shirt, and a belt that is doing absolutely nothing for her due to just how massive it is. It is a very expressive design, and with how energetic and adventurous Adele is, I think this outfit fits her perfectly. Another A-tier design.